internet friends, and welcome back to Tama Bites. In this series, we usually talk about game mechanics, but today I'm going to share some early thoughts about Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. I don't usually talk about the games as they come out, because I like to have the perspective of the games released around them before I really go all out and analyze them. So consider this kind of more off the cuff, less research, early thoughts about the games that are subject to and likely to change in the future. These ideas have had less time to incubate, so it's possible I may not even have all of the details about the game correct, and there may be information that changes the context of these events in the game that I just didn't find, or information that may come out in future DLC that I just don't know about yet. And these are really fresh in my mind, because I literally just played the part of the game that I'm talking about yesterday, so I'm coming in hot. It's a hot take. Today, we're taking a bite out of Scarlet and Violet storytelling. A warning to viewers who have not finished the games yet, this video will contain spoilers about the ending of Scarlet and Violet, and also Sun and Moon. So please wait to watch it until you've decided you either don't care about the plot being spoiled or have already finished the game. This is the third game directed by Shigeru Omori that I've played, and he has some interesting storytelling quirks that I've noticed across Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Sun and Moon, and now these games. Now when I say storytelling, I'm talking about game concept, which may or may not be actually written by Omori himself. But there are definite trends in how the story plays out in each game that differ depending on who's directing. Whereas the stories in games that Masuda directed were all macro, big stories with world-ending stakes and a huge cast of characters that all play a small collective role, Omori seems to prefer the micro, focusing in on interpersonal drama between a small set of characters and how they all relate to each other. Usually the stakes in these stories are more focused on things that matter to the characters as individuals. With Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, he didn't get to tell a brand new story, but those games excelled at helping the old characters come to life in a new way, with huge improvements to animation and character dialogue. He also has a bit of a flair for melodrama, which was introduced with the tragic backstory of the one new character in that game, Zinnia. This continued in Sun and Moon, where Lillie and her relationship with her mother were really the main story of the game, and the formulaic plot with Legendary just kind of ended up getting in the way of that story. Overall, I think Omori's style of how he directs game concepts has strengths, and that focusing in on the characters and reducing the scope of the story is a good direction to move in. But in all of these games, there have been some consistent issues that I've had with some of his decisions, and there are a couple parts of Scarlet and Violet that really illustrate this. Let me explain. So my issues begin with the Team Star storyline. I think that overall the storyline is fine. Team Star are refusing to return to class because the school let them down by not protecting them from severe bullying. The old faculty all left after Team Star took matters into their own hands, and now the new school director seeks them out and tries to understand them and make amends. That part I'm fine with. The problem that I have with it is relatively minor overall, but it's the way that the player is involved. And this becomes kind of a bigger issue when you consider it in context with the main plot, which I'll get into in a second. The player is dragged into the Team Star storyline by getting their phone hacked by Penny. Then the director, Mr. Clavel, wasn't Miss Clavel the name of the teacher from Madeline? Anyway, he uses the fact that Penny is extorting the player to his advantage to get close to the members of Team Star. And when all is said and done, several people involved thank you for helping, but no one actually apologizes to you for using you in this way. And Penny isn't held accountable for hacking your phone or other people's social media accounts. The big crime that she confesses to is stealing the league points, and she gets a pseudo punishment for that, but nothing for invading your and other students' privacy. And Clavel seems to think that's fine too, and nobody even mentions it. In fact, the game seems to think that this is a neutral framework not worthy of addressing at all, but it really kind of positions you as one of Penny's victims, and then the game treats her as one of your new awkward best friends. I get that Penny's aims were good and that she herself was a victim of bullying, but to me that doesn't make it okay that she got you involved at all when really this had nothing to do with you. She invaded your privacy and hacked your property, and the adult in the situation didn't help and instead had you do all of his dirty work out of convenience. I think the reason that they had Penny hack your phone at all was just to demonstrate that she's good with tech, but I think it frames the whole thing in an unnecessarily negative way. I guess like a kid student may not have a lot to lose by getting their phone hacked, but as shorthand, it's something that people playing the game might have negative experiences with in this day and age. And it isn't this neutral nothing to lose thing for a lot of people. Privacy and security are a big deal to me personally, and I felt what Penny did crossed a line. And that Clavel not only failed to protect you, not only did he not hold Penny accountable for it, but also he capitalized on it. And he still gets this whole redemptive framing of being one of the good adults, cares about the kids and goes out of his way to help and understand them, while ignoring that he's kind of letting you down in a big way in the process. And similar with Penny, the game makes the judgment for you that what she did was justified. So that's strike 1 against Clavel for me. And strike 2 is the end of the main story, The Way Home. Again, overall I think that this storyline is pretty good. I think that all of the kid characters, except Penny, are great, and that the dialogue between all of them during the climax when you're running around in Area 0 fleshes them out and bonds them. And it's probably the best I've ever seen a Pokemon handle the idea that you and your friends are saving the day. Additionally, it's a new and interesting break from the typical Pokemon formula. Miraidon and Koraidon are revealed to not be legendary Pokemon at all, but rather just past or future versions of the Pokemon Cyclizar. And it's not a big world-ending climax revolving around the bad guy using a big, cool, legendary Pokemon. It's actually a rather small, personal feeling story. And I think this scale and this type of storytelling is a good direction for the series to move in. It creates a much more compelling set of circumstances than the trite and tired formula we've come to expect. There's a familiar element here from past games in the series, and that's that there are incompetent adults that let everyone down and make huge mistakes, and that the kids have to step in and make things right. I think the last lines that the AI professor says to them, that they're going to be able to handle whatever happens in the future, really brings this point home. But again, the problem that I've had with all of Omori's games that I've played so far, I haven't finished Sword and Shield, so I have no idea if this issue is in those games too, is that Omori likes to redeem the adults and have the kids forgive them, which was a huge problem for me in Sun and Moon. I think it was quite a painful ending for Lillie as a character, to forgive her mom and decide to be her abusive mother's caretaker, instead of having her newfound independence paid off in a way that would have been fulfilling to her as a character. It's a really sensitive topic, but on a basic survival level, it's not good for the child character Lillie to forgive her abusive caretaker and allow them continued closeness and proximity with which to hurt her further. In Scarlet and Violet, in much different circumstances, Clavel, and I guess the school in general, is redeemed by having Clavel make amends with the students that were bullied during the old administration. So Clavel is supposed to be a likable character and is framed by the game as such. But even ignoring the Team Star thing, he lets the kids down again. Now I may need to replay the game to make sure of a few details here, but from the books that I read in Area 0, what I gathered is that basically the lab down there started as a corporately funded project to create the Terra Orbs, which are distributed by the school. It was run by Arven's parent, the professor in the respective version of the game you're playing, and was owned by the school, in a similar way that hospitals and other research institutions are usually owned by universities in real life. So if that is the case, then Clavel not knowing what was going on down there is pretty severe negligence on his part. And if the game frames the old faculty not knowing about the bullying as negligence, then this is definitely negligence. Miraidon and Koraidon's aggressive counterparts are responsible for killing Arven's parent, and Clavel just takes the professor's word for it that it's safe for you to be carrying one of them around. Additionally, when the kids come back from Area 0, he rewards them and tells them that no one can know what happened down there, as if he knows it'll make the school look bad, because it's negligence that resulted in someone actually getting killed. And now, even with a completely different administration, the school is still putting kids in danger. Rather than celebrate our victory, I felt like I ought to whistle blow the school and get the whole thing shut down. I think the game wants this to be like whimsical with dark undertones like Harry Potter, another popular franchise for kids set in a school with severe negligence. But I think the difference is, Harry Potter doesn't try to wrap everything up in this neat little bow and pretend that all of the adults are actually still good guys and that everything is fine and chill. But here they do that. And I'm not saying that Harry Potter doesn't have its own serious problems, by the way. It's just the closest example I can think of another fictional universe doing something similar. The game wants to touch on some of the serious problems that exist with private for-profit schools, but then it still wants to shoehorn in an ending where the school is the good guy, and all of the issues are solved forever and will never happen again. The story that they came up with in this game is actually kind of too dark for the ending they gave it, and the school not facing consequences for what happened feels kind of unjustified and unearned. It's like the opposite of the problem that's in Diamond and Pearl. Those games had a climax that was really dark that wasn't earned at all by the mostly frivolous and lighter toned rest of the story, and these games have an ending that's too light in tone for the actual dark content of the game. And the problem with Omori redeeming all the adults who don't deserve it continues with poor Arven, who either sarcastically or sincerely forgives his dead parent, depending on how you read it, for neglecting him his whole life to build a time machine, and then is immediately forgotten about by all of the characters in the story. He deserved an ending where his treasure was a found family, but instead everyone immediately abandons him to do this school project thing which he for some reason doesn't get a role in, and he forgives his deadbeat parent. Cool, game. It's just really frustrating to have the game go this far and make Arven suffer that much, and then also have this ending where everyone is just on good terms with all of the perpetrators. As much as I love Gen 5, this game actually reminds me a lot of the issues that are in Gen 5, where there's characters asking you to make choices everywhere that you can't actually make. Here you can go anywhere and do anything in any order, but you can't actually make any decisions that impact any of the storylines, other than not playing the game. When Arven's parent was demanding that we go into the crater, and Arven was clearly feeling upset and hurt by the way he was being treated, we didn't have the option to side with him and let him make the decision on his own about whether we go or not. And at no point during the Team Star storyline could I tell Cassiopeia to fuck off and stop hacking my phone, or to tell Clavel that I was being extorted and that there was something really wrong with all of this. I was hoping that the issues with Sun and Moon's ending, where Lillie gets her payoff taken away from her, were due to being beholden to the formula with the legendary Pokemon. But this game doesn't even have that, and it still manages to shit on all the characters who suffer the most. So I don't know what the problem is. Either Omori needs to dial it back several steps and stop going this dark with these heart-wrenching situations, or he needs to take a step forward and let the characters actually react to what's happening to them, and not just put on a happy face, regardless of the terrible implications that has. I have heard people say that this is a cultural issue because these games are made in Japan by Japanese people, and maybe that's true and maybe it's not. I'm not Japanese, I've never lived in that culture, but I've definitely consumed other Japanese media with more emotionally resonant resolutions for characters. Characters that have survived personal tragedy like Arven and Lillie. And I hope that this problem is not going to recur in even more Pokemon games because it's just not emotionally satisfying. And if that's me as an American imposing American value judgments on a product of another culture, well, that's just what I have to do here, because I don't have another person's worldview I can borrow to interpret this media through. I've decided today, while I ask people to subscribe and hit the bell icon and send me suggestions for future Tama Bites, that I'll do a little show and tell and show off my Pokemon music boxes. I have this one with Pikachu and Caterpie on it that plays Oyasumi Boku no Pikachu. And I have this one, still kind of in the packaging, that has Squirtle and Poliwhirl on it, and it plays Hyakugo Juichi. Subscribe to me. Subscribe to me.